Okay, what is this?
In my last video, I reviewed the game between Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann from the 2022 Sinkfield Cup. I thought that the scandal would be over after that game, but since then, there have been so many more developments to the situation. I've been wanting to make a follow-up video for a while now, but every day some new information comes out. Nevertheless, I'll try to break down the entire situation with a timeline so that everyone can understand what's been going on.
This one isn't good.
So, on September 19th, 2022, Magnus Carlsen was set to face Hans Niemann in the Julius Baer Generations Cup, an online round-robin tournament held on Chess24. This was a highly anticipated matchup because it came just 2 weeks after Magnus had lost to Hans in the Sinkfield Cup, withdrawing from the tournament the very next day. So, it's not a surprise that the entire chess world was waiting to see what would happen in this game. Unfortunately, the game itself was a bit of a letdown.
Right.
Hans Niemann had the white pieces, and he opened with 1 d4. Magnus replied with knight f6, and after Hans played c4 on move 2, Magnus actually resigned the game.
This video
This
is old.
confirms
No,
that
I'm
Magnus
aware,
is
you guys,
still
but
continuing to protest against Hans, and that despite his silence on the situation, we know that it has something to do with cheating. So obviously, the chess world was in shock that Magnus was still refusing to play Hans, but the story gets stranger from here.
I'll speed it up. Just give me 1 second. I'll speed it up. You guys want me to put it? I'll put it 1.5. Okay, there we go.
One day after their 2-move game at the Generations Cup, a photo of Magnus and Hans playing chess on a beach was released. This photo was taken
This is actually too fast. Let me go back to 1.25. Yeah, 1.25 I can do.
during the FTX Crypto Cup in Miami, approximately 2 weeks before their game at the Sinkfield Cup. Fellow top 10 player Anish Giri actually claimed to have seen the game in person, and he even went over it in a video. Giri claimed that Magnus played extremely well and crushed Hans with the black pieces twice, despite playing questionable openings. I'm not
Whoa. Now I have to put it back in normal speed. Oh, wait a second. The plot does thicken. I didn't realize. So wait, did Anish go and do something with Saga, I guess, on YouTube?
And he even went over it in a video. Giri claimed that Magnus played extremely well and crushed Hans with the black pieces twice, despite playing questionable openings.
Oh, okay. Well, now the plot thickens a lot. Wait, now the plot thickens a lot. Okay, I was not aware of that information. Okay. So basically, so Magnus was playing dubious openings and won 2 games quite easily. And then Hans is just like, he's on 2.5 out of 3 and he's crushing the Sinkfield Cup. Okay, this might add a lot though. This might add a lot to Magnus's. I assume Magnus already had suspicions, but this might have added a lot to that. Also, sorry you guys about the ads. That's Twitch for you. What can I say? It's only going to get worse, unfortunately.
I'm not going to go into super heavy detail with these games, but I will show the basic ideas here. So Anish Giri claimed that he remembered 2 games from the beach. Magnus played black
here we go. We
in
get the
both
games.
of them.
Good.
So we're going to go over both of the games very quickly. They're not super relevant to the actual situation regarding the cheating and the drama, but I do like to add some valuable chess instruction in these videos. So yeah, like I said, Hans had white in both, and in the first game, this is all from Anish's memory, by the way. So he did mention that it was a little hazy and that sometimes he tried to remember the move order, but he could have been wrong. But basically, this is the breakdown. So he claimed that Hans started with d4, Magnus played d5, and Hans went knight c3. So after knight c3, Magnus played knight c6, bishop f4, and then e5.
Okay.
And here, I believe that bishop takes e5 is the correct move. However, Hans played d takes e5, which is very natural. And obviously, this is just a blitz game, so it's not that serious. But basically, d takes e5 was played. Magnus went g5, bishop g3, and d4. And already it looks super sharp. Hans went knight e4. And after h5, h4, bishop f5, Hans played the move knight d2. Note that he can't take on g5 because of bishop b4 check, and then like after c3, d takes c3.
But actually, like I could swear, isn't White already in a lot of? It looks like White's already in a lot of trouble here.
So after knight d2, Anish said that Magnus played g4, and then he didn't go any further than this. He just said that soon Magnus played f6 and completely crushed Hans. So that's what Anish Giri said. He covered it on like ChessBase India. I mean, you guys can go check out that video if you want. But basically, in the second game, Magnus again, he had black, so Hans opened with d4. Magnus played knight c6. Hans played knight c3, knight f6, e4, and d5. So Hans played e5 here, and after knight d7, he did not play knight takes d5, because if knight takes d5, black had this really nice trick with knight b8, and you can't really hold on to this d4 pawn. If you go like knight c3, black can just take on d4 with the knight. If you defend the knight with either bishop c4 or let's say like pawn c4, then it looks like black can just go e6, and after you go back, knight takes d4, or I guess queen takes d4 can be played.
No, this is all
that's why Hans didn't
serious,
go for e5 and knight takes d5. He played e5 and then knight f3. Here Magnus played knight b6, and Hans went h.
It's on the beach. Why does it make any suspicions? Well, the thing is, if we look at Magnus's, here's my general read. I assume Magnus was aware of the rumors. He had been probably for like 2 years or more. But then he played Hans on the beach, and then suddenly Hans is just like playing. I mean, this is completely fine, nothing crazy, but he's just blowing him away. And then suddenly he's like playing like all sorts of different openings, very sharp openings. He's playing with very high accuracy against the best players in the world, and I'm guessing that played a large part in Magnus's thinking. So I do think that this is not. I think this is actually very relevant to the situation.
h3, preventing this bishop g4 stuff. Magnus played h6, which
we'll
actually
look at
surprised
Yosha later,
Anish.
you guys. He
expected him to play bishop f5.
And then
but
G4
h6, I guess the point is that after, let's say, like bishop d3, black can play like knight b4. So that's the idea.
H6 is a very nice finesse by
But
Magnus.
Hans didn't do that. He went a3 instead. After Magnus played bishop f5, he went g4, bishop h7, e6.
Yeah.
F takes e6, bishop d3. So already this looks really good for Hans, but Magnus had a really nice way to get out of this. He played bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and e5. And at first glance, it looks like black is just getting completely demolished here, but it's actually not bad at all. After queen g6 check,
king d7,
king
e6,
d7,
and queen e8, yeah.
d takes e5. Black just played e6, and he was actually totally fine. Hans played b3,
queen e8,
queen e8,
yep,
queen d3, queen f7. And this is where Anish really stopped talking about the game, but he just said that basically Magnus got his bishop out to c5, his rook in the game, made some sacrifice down here, and he crushed him again.
Yeah.
So basically that's it for the two games. I didn't want to go into ridiculously heavy detail because this wasn't recorded anywhere. It was just recalled from Anish's memory. And honestly, the moves themselves aren't relevant to the cheating scandal. I just wanted to make sure that...
Actually, it's funny. He says they're not relevant to the scandal, but I actually view it the exact opposite way. I think this is extremely relevant to everything, because when you look at these games, Hans is not playing at like a 2750 level. And so I think like when Hans gets blown out of the water in the first game, specifically, I think actually it speaks a lot to Magnus and his general thoughts. I actually do. Yeah, I know you're saying they're beach games. Beach games are not admissible in court. That's not actually the point though that I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I think that when Magnus probably heard these rumors from many different people. As I said, this is no secret in the GM circles. So my guess is that Magnus probably heard these rumors, and then he heard the rumors, and like he doesn't know Hans. Obviously, Hans is American, doesn't play same tournaments, all that other stuff. And then once he plays him on, then he plays him on the beach, and Hans isn't like playing great chess, and Magnus just blows him away. It's like so Hans is playing these great games, and now suddenly he's playing terribly, and then in Sinkfield Cup he starts playing really, really well, and I think that speaks a lot to Magnus's mindset. I think for sure it speaks to his mindset based on the game. So even though he says this guy says the moves aren't relevant, I think it's actually extremely relevant to the whole situation.
Each one of my videos contains some useful chess instruction. Now, regardless of what happened in those blitz games on the beach, there's one important thing that must be stated. In the photo, Magnus and Hans seem to be amicable.
Yeah, they seem to be amicable, right? Yeah, this is a great picture, of course. Anyway, all right, let's get back to the video. Yeah.
On the beach, there's one important thing that must be stated. In the photo, Magnus and Hans seem to be amicable.
Yeah.
They had also played each other several times in the Crypto Cup that week, and it seems that Magnus had no problem playing against him in that event. So what does this all mean? Well, let's look at the timeline. In August, Magnus and Hans played against each other in the Crypto Cup with no issues, and they also played a few friendly games on the beach. In September, however, we witnessed a scandal regarding potential cheating at the Sinkfield Cup, and 2 weeks later we saw Magnus continue to protest against playing Hans. This means that somewhere between August and September, Magnus Carlsen probably received some information regarding Hans that made him suspicious. August also happens to be the month in which Chess.com acquired the Play Magnus Group, which was founded by Carlsen himself. My theory is that through the acquisition of Play Magnus by Chess.com, Magnus was granted access to some previously undisclosed information regarding Hans. After all, Hans has already admitted to cheating online.
The only problem with this part of the story, again, is now that we have those tweets from Danny Wrench and CEO Eric, it's clearly not the case. Yes, they flat out denied. So again, this is not like a video from today, but it's not correct. By the way, someone also brought up an important question here. They said, well, like, why is Hans even invited to tournaments? Well, the thing is, and you know, there were a lot of people who got very angry at me when this first broke, is that this is something that has been known in the GM circles for a very, very long time. But it's a very tricky situation, because think about it. If you're suspicious of someone, for all the chess players who are playing these tournaments, you really need these tournaments. This is how you make a living as a chess player. And if you say something to an organizer and you express some sort of suspicion about a certain player, like, they might be like, okay, you're like accusing someone of cheating, we're not going to invite you, and that's going to cost you potentially invitations and or your career. So it's a very sticky situation. It's a very sticky situation when you think like, okay, well, why you know, so like, why would players go and say something to an organizer? It's very hard to say something to an organizer, because then the organizers might just think you're completely, you know, you're smoking crack, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so it becomes this thing that's very well known amongst the GM group, super GMs in particular. Like, this is not some like huge secret, something that wasn't known. It's been out there for the last couple of years. But at the same time, all these people, all these organizers, a lot of people who are not in the GM circles or super GM circles were completely unaware of this, which is why when it broke, everyone's like, what's going on? Like, where did this come from? It must be a witch hunt. It must be coming from like, it must be, you know, something that Magnus has cooked up. But that's not the truth. Yeah, people get super angry when they perceive basic accusations, even though GMs rarely do that. Hey, how's it going, Dania? So that's the thing. Like, yeah, it sounds like, okay, why can't you say something? But again, at the end of the day, that's just not really how it works. You guys actually have a WhatsApp group where you talk random gossip? No, we don't. But I will say again, you know, we are all colleagues at the end of the day, and yes, like, you know, when we compete against each other, of course we want to, you know, beat each other. But you know, at the end of the day, there are only probably 20-25 players in the world who are super grandmasters who make a living from playing. So there's a certain level of respect and general like decency that you have towards everybody, even if we are competitors at the end of the day. So we do talk. All right, let's keep going.
At the age of 12 and the age of 16. Maybe Magnus just found this out during the deal, or perhaps Magnus realized that he had cheated in some other instances that we don't know about. These are all questions that the chess world is asking, and fortunately, it seems like we'll be getting answers soon. Although Magnus has refused to answer.
Benjamin says, we do have a group, but Hikaru is not in there. That's a good one, Benjamin. Yeah, so okay, so what they're saying, I mean, here's my general read. Again, you know, until Magnus says something, we don't know, but my general read of the situation is that Magnus had to have been aware of the rumors, just like I was, just like Fabiano was, just like Nepo was, right? That I think that's impossible. I mean, if we're aware of it, there's no way that Magnus was not aware of these rumors too, right? So Magnus had to be aware of the rumors. He had to be aware of the rumors. These rumors, were they only ever about his online cheating? I mean, to answer it simply, no. To answer it simply, no. That's the very short answer I'll give on the topic. No. So where were we? Okay. So for Magnus, I assume he must have been aware, and he'd heard all these rumors. So he goes and plays Hans on the beach, or he goes and plays him on the beach or in the FTX Crypto Cup, whatever. He's clearly watching, you know, Hans's games. And he sees this marked dip in his play. This dip that he's not playing at like a 2750, 2850 level, whatever it might be. And Magnus is unsure about what to do. And then we get to the tournament, and it sounds like Nepo himself. Stop being a narc. What do you mean being a narc? I'm not being a narc. But it sounds like Magnus, not Magnus, sorry, Nepo, right? Nepo said that he went to them and he basically was concerned, right? Nepo said that in his podcast, the 1 hour podcast that he did. So Nepo was concerned. Nepo was concerned about it, which tells me then that Magnus probably is like very much on the edge, unsure of what to do about the whole situation. Actually, I forgot. Didn't Fabiano also said Magnus almost didn't play, right? So it sounds to me like basically Magnus probably was very, very unsure. He probably had like really big suspicions, but how are you supposed to handle it? And then finally, even if he's convinced that something has happened, something is wrong, maybe not even in Singfield, what does he do? He must have felt that the only way to really make a statement was to drop out, because it clearly was not being taken seriously. is my read. You look at the security, it was very light despite the warnings from Nepo, and now it's and then it changes as soon as Magnus drops out. So my general guess is that Magnus, he must have felt something wrong happened somewhere along the way over the board. I'll say over the board because I think he must have thought something bad happened over the board, and he felt this was the only way for it to be taken seriously. That's actually my general read of the situation. Is I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is Magnus felt like he's completely helpless in the situation. How does cheating get taken seriously? So that is my actual read. That is my read. And also, if he has zero evidence to, how do you, I mean, if you're like, if the greatest chess player of all time who studies everybody's games and is really sure of something, how do you even go about that if you have zero proof? So I think that's what it is. I think that's my general take, that Magnus probably was very suspicious, but then when nothing's being taken seriously, whether it's Magnus, Nepo, whomever, then he felt like it was the only way to take a stand. That's my honest read of the situation. So everyone's taking it very seriously now. That is true. All right, so let's finish up this video.
Answer most questions regarding his decision throughout this week. He has clearly stated two things. One, he mentioned that he thought Hans's coach, Grandmaster Maxime Delugi, was doing a great job, perhaps suggesting that Maxime plays a role in this entire ordeal. But more importantly, he said this.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say this, to be fair, this was the thing that was really, this really caught my eye, the way that Magnus name dropped Delugi, because there was it's on 1.25 speed, you guys, that's why it's faster. But when he dropped Delugi's name, like, there is no, I mean, I don't know what Magnus is saying, but you don't just do that unless you're implying it. New Tarjay tweet about your stream. Okay.
With a bunch of questions on this. I only have one that I feel is hanging, because with your actions, you have put 19-year-old Niemann in a storm of allegations. So I'm just wondering, will you come with some evidence next week?
Again, that is that's going to be addressed next week.
So there you have it. A lot has happened in the chess world this week, but it looks like Magnus will finally clarify what has been going on in a few days. I really look forward to hearing his response and seeing if it contains any evidence, because if Magnus doesn't have anything concrete, this could do irreparable damage to Hans's career, if it hasn't already. Grandmasters seem to be really divided on this topic. There are a lot of super GMs who agree with what they believe Magnus is insinuating, but there are also a lot of strong players who have come to Hans's defense. Personally, I still stand by the statement I made in my last video, which is that based on the games I've seen so far, I have not seen anything too outrageous, and thus, I do not believe that Hans is cheating. I got a lot of interesting comments agreeing with me on my last video, but I also got a lot of comments that disagreed with my opinion, which is obviously fine, but I still believe that unless Magnus delivers concrete evidence with proof of cheating, Hans remains innocent. I'll keep you guys.
I'll be blunt about this part too. There is one very, very difficult aspect to all this, which is the fact is when this guy Gabriel Sam says like definitive proof, there is not going to be definitive proof, because the only thing that you can have this definitive proof is literally like you pull something out of your shoe, you pull something out of an ear, whatever it might be. That is the only way you're going to have definitive proof. The question is, if there is stuff statistically speaking which is which is outside the norms, like how far does that go? Like, is that enough? Is that not enough? I mean, it is very, very important as a topic for the future of the game. Very, very important. Pull something. Oh, right. Yeah, you could also, yes, pull it out of somewhere else too. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
As updated on Magnus's response in a future video, but until then, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So yeah, there we go. Only shoe and ear, you missed the spot. Right, exactly. Okay, so that was the next thing we want to cover.